Hey, and welcome to Game Talk, episode 25. I'm your host, Ahmed Mion. Today I'm joined by Connor
Hi guys.
and Michael.
Hi.
The first thing we want to talk about are console names. So, pretty self-explanatory. A console's name, while it might not seem like an important thing, I feel like it can and has defined sort of the tone and the almost even the success of several consoles in the past. One really glaringly obvious example I can think of is the Nintendo Wii,
We would
which
like
was
to play.
one of the most successful consoles of all time. Like the marketing for the Wii was on point. The name naturally evoked the fact that it would be like a fun multiplayer type party. You can show it to anyone type console. While conversely, its successor, the Wii U, was a brand new console, but the name didn't really convey that, and we saw what happened to the Wii U in terms of sales. So names can be a very important thing for console branding, so I just wanted to bring it up and talk about console names.
I think Nintendo in particular should know better because they've made this mistake before. They made the same mistake with the Super Nintendo. Like the NES was super popular, and then they released the Super NES, and people aren't sure what it is at all.
Right, unless you make like a clear delineation between consoles like PlayStation does. Like PlayStation has the most simple naming convention of all the companies, just PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's a clear sign, I think, that there's new hardware available, like the average parents Christmas shopping for their kid can recognize that, as opposed to Nintendo and even to an extent Microsoft's confusing naming strategy. Like when the Xbox One name was announced, I'm sure a lot of parents were confused that Christmas, like trying to get their kids the Xbox 360, whereas in fact the Xbox One was the newest model of the system. So
I'm theorizing after the Xbox 2, or it's not going to be the Xbox 2, it's going to be like the Xbox 720 or the 90, the Xbox Euclidean geometry. It's going to be some ridiculous dopey name because Microsoft kind of has it in their head that they can't name their consoles in a sequential order or have any fun with their names.
Well, Nintendo doesn't name their consoles in a sequential order either, but I feel like they have had comparatively more catchier sounding console names. Like I think Nintendo Switch is a great name, even though there were some
I agree.
There were some like people who didn't feel that way when the console was announced. I thought Nintendo Wii, Nintendo GameCube, Nintendo 64, all great titles.
For console. They were all very clear.
Yeah, they're very descriptive of what the console does, unlike the Xbox One, which does that mean?
Yeah, like GameCube. The visuals were in the title.
A cube.
Yeah, Nintendo's consoles did a good idea. Like for the most part, did a good job of like evoking what those systems were kind of about.
Right. I think it may have been confusing to have the GameCube and the Xbox around.
Yeah, I could see that.
But I was too young to really remember that. I think we're kind of neglecting the masters of terrible console names, though, and that would have to be Sega.
I don't know. I thought Dreamcast was a cool sounding name, but
oh yeah, no, they at the very end they kind of got it together, but like the Sega Genesis, the Sega Master System, the Game Gear, it just I can't get straight what all of those are, even as somebody who's very interested in retro games. I don't know what any of those things are.
Here's something, like, do you feel like maybe we feel that way because Sega ended up being not successful in the console space? You think in some alternate universe where Nintendo failed and Sega succeeded, those names would sound normal?
I still think people would be mocking them for it, the same way we mock Nintendo for the Super Nintendo.
Do we mock Nintendo for the Super Nintendo?
I mean, lots of people do.
I don't.
Lots of people who were young back then, like, would ask their parents, they want the new Super Nintendo. I think their parents would be like, you already have a Nintendo, you don't need another.
I think a more apt and current analogy would be the Wii U, from the Wii.
Yeah,
that's just
definitely.
Yeah, that was a terrible, terrible mistake.
Like in the Sega CD, people were like, "Oh, is this a new console?" No, it's not. It's an add-on for Genesis. Like, I'm sure there was a non-zero number of people that bought that without already having a Genesis, when it's really just a disk drive for the Genesis.
And I own a Sega Genesis disc drive. I have 2 of them.
So, how do you guys feel about PlayStation? It's obviously the simplest naming convention, but
I think it's probably the best. It's the least interesting.
Exactly. I mean, it's worked out for them really well. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, I think, because like one, you avoid the awkwardness and the confusion when you have a name that doesn't really convey what it is you're selling. Like, Wii U, a lot of people thought that was just an add-on to the Wii. You avoid that, but simultaneously you don't get to have like cash in on a hip, trendy sort of thing like Nintendo's Switch does, I honestly do feel like Nintendo Switch would not sell as well as it has. It would probably still sell really well, but not as well as it has if it had like a lamer name.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like if it had the Wii in its name, I don't think it would be selling at all.
Yeah, like the Wii.
I think it would sell about as well as the Wii.
Wii Go or something. If it was called Wii Go.
Yeah.
No, it would probably be the Wii Me.
I think that would.
It's just because.
That's just it's getting ridiculous at that point.
I don't think it would go anywhere. I think it's definitely true that a name carries a lot. I really don't think naming has anything to do with the Xbox One being behind. I agree that it's not a good name, but I don't think that's what their issue is.
I think it's not. It's a small
definitely
reason as to why. Yeah, it's a small reason. Because there were definitely like anecdotal stories like of people going to buy Xbox One for their kids and buying 360s instead because they thought 360s were the more advanced models or whatever.
Yeah.
We didn't really touch on handheld names. I kind of wanted to bring that up. I feel like handhelds as a whole have way better names than consoles. Like Game Boy, Nintendo DS. I think those are, I don't know, really just simple yet very evocative names.
The 3DS is good. The Switch is good.
Right. Switch gets to be both. And
I think
even the PlayStation ones, like PSP, PS Vita is probably the weakest one, but I still think it's a pretty catchy name for a handheld.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't think there's a ton to say about them.
Yeah, there really isn't.
Just because they sell so well. I mean, yeah, they work. Everybody knows what they are. The Nintendo DS, I don't know. I don't know if that's really a good name. It's very descriptive. The Nintendo dual screen, like.
Wow, I feel really stupid. I never realized DS stood for dual screen. I just kind of understood. I just took DS at face value.
Really?
But yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
And then I guess the Nintendo 3 dual screen was, arguably inaccurate. But
it was 3D.
3D.
It's 3D screen.
Yeah.
The Nintendo 3D screen.
Yeah. So really, they just kind of nailed it every time. I mean, the Sega Game Gear, I guess, doesn't scream portability to me, but
I don't know. I think the Game Boy is the best handheld console name of all time. Like
it's a little gender,
and I'm
which is disadvantage.
Yeah, I suppose that's true, but it's just maybe it's the nostalgia factor for me. But just
what about the Virtual Boy? That's one.
The Virtual Boy was trying to, so much like the 3DS, was trying to cash in on the Game Boy's popularity, but also communicate that it was supposed to be a virtual reality device.
It tried.
And it was just a catastrophic
It was ahead of its time.
In every way.
It wasn't ahead of its time. It was at its time. Maybe even before. Everything had a reddish tint that hurt your eyes.
Well, it would have hurt your eyes way more if it had a greenish tint like the Game Boy.
We can go a little further back in time too, like really, really old console names, like Atari 2600.
Yeah, I hate those names. Yeah, the Atari.
That's an awful name. Yeah. Just slap an arbitrary. Like I'm sure 2600 has some significance, but that's I feel like that whoever came up with that name, there was no marketing. There were no marketing teams involved.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, at least not good ones.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess we'll move on to our next topic, which is MMOs, or massively multiplayer games. So I I think all three of us have a decent amount of experience with MMOs.
Yeah.
Me and Amid share a lot of experience in a game called Maple Story, which is a
Very shameful.
kind of a children's MMO. Mike, you play a lot of Warframe. That's
yeah,
an MMO,
and I'm
isn't it?
currently, playing it in the background right now.
Oh, so I guess the point of an MMO is that it's massively multiplayer online, which is what the name implies, and basically it's just it's a big community often more than it is a game. You take a set of game mechanics and then make them require cooperation and communication.
I mean, it's in the title, right? Like massively multiplayer online games. That's what they are.
Right. So ideally, they have thousands of players.
And MMOs have been around for, I mean, for what seems like forever at this
pretty
point.
much as long as the internet has been reasonable.
Yeah. And they were sort of games. They were games as a service before games as a service became a thing, you know?
Right. Microtransactions definitely started in the MMO space.
Yeah, and other game genres and developers saw how lucrative that was, and we're seeing that more and more. Those systems in all sorts of games now, like all sorts of games and genres, like Call of Duty's got microtransactions, and I don't have to go through the list, but like all sorts. All the major publishers and companies took that model and sort of made their own spin on it.
Right, and MMOs also were the first to have a subscription service, like all consoles have now.
Right.
And I think it's interesting just to see... I don't know, the genre is very stagnant recently. We have MMO Lite innovating a little bit, but you don't see an MMO get popular very often anymore. I would say still most of the MMO crowd is playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah, World of Warcraft took over the world and kept it.
That's over 10 years old now, isn't it?
Yes, I think.
Has anybody here played it?
I've tried a couple times and I could never get into it.
I've never played it myself, but I've played quite a few MMOs. I've played a game called Flife. I've played Maple Story. I've played Mabinogi. I've played Vindictus.
So I want to bring something up, and this might just be due to my limited knowledge, but I feel like most, if not all, MMOs are also RPGs.
Yeah, I'd say the vast majority, because that's the easiest way to go, I think, to keep people in for the long run.
You have stuff like World of Tanks and other like massively lobby shooters.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not inclined to call those MMOs, though. Because it's not a huge number of people playing in the same
because then you're kind of getting more into the realm of just a typical multiplayer game, like like for instance Halo, like team deathmatch or something, just on a slightly larger scale.
Right. I would
of that nature, I wouldn't consider Warframe massively multiplayer because it's all instanced, but at the same time there is places where you can be with 100 some players.
Right, and also you have to take into account that in Warframe you have to watch community markets and stuff as well, don't you?
Yeah.
So I think
to an extent, yeah.
That leans into the MMO side, is the community.
And there's clans and everything. So it's very much fits in with the sort of an MMO, but at the same time it's instanced. That's where I think World of Tanks falls.
Well,
is in an instance MMO.
I think
like there's a common world space, but
I mean, I would say most, if not all, MMOs at the very least have their world divided up into different channels or servers, because there's absolutely no way like one server could hold the entire population of MMO. We would be talking like millions of players at once,
unless you're Eve.
Yeah, Eve. Well, Eve is instanced, sort of. All the different places you can go in Eve are different instances. Like, they're not all running on the same machine necessarily, to my understanding. But that's far too technical to worry about on our podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think an MMO, just a downside to MMOs, I guess, is that they're really attractive to beginning game developers for some reason.
Yeah.
Really?
A lot of people want to jump in and make an MMO, and I don't really know why, for a lot of reasons.
I feel like that should be maybe one of your last endeavors after you've gotten like tons of experience.
Right. I mean, it's incredibly difficult, but I see regularly people talking about like, hey, I'm getting on Reddit and stuff in different forums, like, hey, I'm getting started in game development. I want to learn how to make MMOs, and then everybody in the comments are just like, well, first you're gonna need to work 30 years as a software engineer.
Yeah, that's like wanting to run a marathon before you can even crawl, I would say.
Yeah, it's and I don't really, for a lot of reasons, I don't understand why people want to do that. Because one, it's one of the most difficult genres to succeed in. Like, if you're not World of Warcraft or maybe Guild Wars, like you're not
Or like
going
a
to succeed in
Korean
the MMO
MMO
space.
where,
Yeah,
you know, everything you do is grind and
yeah, it's just not, and like it's so content heavy, and it's just, I mean, yeah, it seems even to me like before I was into game development, it seemed like the most difficult thing to make. And I
you
just don't.
also it's also the costliest because again, you have to support an entire player backend.
Right, yeah, you have to run all these servers and everything. I just don't understand why people flock to it as a beginning place. But that's kind of an aside.
Well, a lot of times MMOs, people who really do play MMOs, that's typically all they play, right? So they're very invested and very passionate about, just MMOs. So I could see maybe that's why like that might be all they know and they kind of want to just take advantage of that, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. And I kind of get that. Like, I don't know. I get that people love the sense of community and everything in MMOs. But by and large, these games aren't very good. I feel like when I see World of Warcraft, like I don't see it doing anything that most other RPGs don't do better.
So
It's just the sense of community.
I think this is a good time to segue into why these games are so popular and even addicting. Like MMOs are more addicting, I would say, than any other game genre.
I would say for sure because people can really live in an MMO because there's real people you can talk to and sell
Right.
things to.
You hear stories
help.
about people like meeting their significant others, future husbands and wives through MMOs like World of Warcraft.
I
and
had a
stuff.
friend who met his girlfriend on RuneScape.
Some
Yeah.
MMOs there's two types of MMOs: the Skinner box MMOs, which WoW falls into, where it rewards a player for doing something, and then it shows them another reward that they have to do something for, and it just keeps them hooked on that chain of rewards. And that's how
Right.
WoW works. And then you have stuff like Warframe, where it's less of a Skinner box and more of a, oh, this is so much fun killing things, and kind of a big power fantasy.
I don't know if I think there's kind of a third there, which is like the big wide open playground.
Yeah.
Which is what Guild Wars and Mabinogi kind of fall into. Because they, in a sense, they don't really bar you from going anywhere. They kind of scale, sort of like Skyrim does. They scale levels so that you can be wherever you want to be, with a couple of exceptions so that you have something to work towards.
That's cool.
And that just kind of lets you go out and you have this big old world you can explore and live in. And I think that's interesting. I think it says a lot that like, it's hard to name an MMO that doesn't have a system to like buy a house or join a guild.
Right.
Stuff.
Community is absolutely a core tenet of an MMO.
I mean, you can get married in most MMOs. Even MapleStory, an MMO designed for children, you can get married in.
Right, but even that said, I would say community is still the second most important aspect. The number one reason I think people are addicted to MMOs is the loot loop. You know what I mean? Like MMOs have that down better than any other game genre.
Yeah, they definitely do.
Like,
and not necessarily like loot in the traditional sense. Like it can be new skills, new EXP. Like you and I get addicted to MapleStory.
Exactly. I can't quite
just watching those numbers get bigger.
Wait, why? Yeah, it's like a very base human thing. Like it, I don't know. The MMOs are just masters at rewarding you at just the right time for you to crave that reward again. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I would say MapleStory is definitely better than the MMO I got addicted to the most, which is MapleStory. Or MapleStory does it better than Mabinogi, which is the game I got most addicted to as a kid.
Yeah, there's always that hook that just keeps you going, keeps you doing that mundane task.
Right.
And that's like more than if you boil it down, most of the busy work in an MMO is pretty mundane, you know.
Right, yeah. It's like when you and I were playing MapleStory, we were basically just standing in the same place,
hitting a key over and over
pressing
again. Yeah,
a key,
exactly.
and watching the numbers,
Yeah, that's
watching it gradually get less and less efficient until we had to find somewhere else to do it.
and it's all so like all the enjoyment. It's just I don't know. It's just like ingrained in your
Watching those
brain.
numbers go up
It's
faster,
enjoyable to do that for whatever reason. It's not intellectually stimulating at all or anything like that, but it's still fun.
I don't think it would be fun to do alone, though, so I don't know that I agree that community is not at least equal to that.
Yeah, because you need someone to talk to while you're sitting there hitting a key over and over again.
That's true. Yeah.
Right, because I think my favorite MMO experiences myself are like when I would be like doing just grinding or something, doing one of the mundane tasks, and then somebody would show up wherever I was grinding, and like maybe I'd ask them a question or they'd ask me a question or whatever. One of us knew something about the game that the other didn't, and then we'd go on this wacky misadventure that didn't really necessarily benefit both of us, but one of us was, gaining from it, and the other was at least having fun.
And that's a good
doing it. Like
that's a good thing to bring up. Just the sense of adventure in MMOs, just coupled with the fact that you can play with your friends. There's nothing quite like hopping into a new MMO with your friends and just kind of exploring and getting lost in it together. Like,
yeah.
I can see how that could form like very strong, like emotional bonds.
Right, like I remember, I think my fondest memory of MapleStory was I was like probably 10 or 11 or something playing that game, and I was just grinding in the woods, and these two guys, a guy and a girl, show up and they're dating, and they were like trying to figure out how to get married, and they had no idea where the town was. I forget what it was called. I think it's like Amherst or something.
It was like Amoria, right?
Amoria, yeah. And I knew how to get to it, and it was like the entrance was like fairly well hidden, and then we had to go find it, and then we found out the guy wasn't a high enough level to get married yet, so he had to train
So
up.
funny.
And it was like a multi-day thing that we would just get on at a certain time and hang out and try to solve this problem for them.
Yeah, and that really is like a unique thing to MMOs.
Yeah.
It rarely happens in other games. Even games like Fortnite have that, where it's like you're grinding challenges or something, and that one moment when you can get a bunch of randoms together to do the challenge with you, it's more rewarding than anything else in that game. Any game, really.
Yeah. Just the relationships you form. Like, I was playing Mobby Nogi, and I met this guy named Aaron.
Real name?
Because I saw... Huh?
Real name?
No, well, presumably. That was his name in the game. I don't know if that was his real name or not. But, well, I've never met him. But we hung out, like, every day for years. And,
Wow,
in
that's
Mobby
crazy.
Nogi for, like, a year or two, maybe 3. It started in middle school and went a little into high school. And I introduced him to some of my other friends from real life, and, like, they were all friends as well. And, like, it's just wild. But it was just, like, we were waiting for a dungeon, and we just partied up because, like, I don't know, we thought it was going to be too hard at first. And he played a little more than me, and he was a lot stronger, so he showed me how to get some different skills and stuff that you could find in the world that you couldn't, like, learn just by leveling up. You had to find them and do these really long quest chains. And he showed me how to do that, and eventually, like, he just kind of took me under his wing and taught me stuff about the game as it came out, because I wasn't very good at it. And I checked with him, like, a couple of years ago. I think I was still in high school, but I signed in, and he was in the top 100 players.
Wow, that's amazing.
And, like, yeah, that
So
was just somebody
he
I
never
used to hang
stopped.
out with, like, every day. Yeah, and it was just crazy, yeah. One of the top 100 players on my server, which was one of the bigger ones, I think. And that was just insane to me. He
And
was
for
very
some people,
good.
that's the end game, is teaching people.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely, like, he didn't gain a whole lot from helping me out. It's just that he had kind of plateaued.
I mean, at that point, you've lived in this world and explored all of its nooks and crannies, know all of its secrets. You're kind of there's a
yeah, I mean, he was
certain pride to
online
that, you know?
24/7.
There's a certain sense of
Yeah.
accomplishment that comes with that.
Like games like Warframe also, where there's no end game that's apparent. The end game is helping other players. Like,
Yeah, and I think that's just awesome.
it's designed specifically so you should help other players because, you have nothing better else to do. You might as well teach someone new and have them experience the same, like, joy that you have.
Right.
Yeah, I just think those relationships are really cool. That can really, like, I mean, that's not the only context they can form in, but that is the context I've seen them in personally the most, probably.
Yeah, interplayer
It's very
relationships are more common in MMOs than I feel like any other.
Yeah, I think the only other game I've ever like talked to someone and become friends with them like through the game would have to be Rocket League.
Yeah, like really popular
and Little Big
multiplayer
Planet.
games.
Yeah, Little Big Planet gave you because it kind of would party you up and you'd stay in the same place with people for a while. But I didn't have like nearly the relationship me and Aaron had where we like talked for years. Like he doesn't get on anymore. I've checked a couple times just to try to catch up with him. I don't have any of his contact info.
Maybe he finally moved on.
Yeah, which that's the sad part about MMOs, I guess, is that if you walk away for a little bit, you might lose friends that only exist to you in that world, which is another addictive premise, I guess, about them.
I kind of wanted to also talk about the future of MMOs because I feel like they've been pretty stagnant for a while now.
Right. I think VR is going to shake things up.
That's where I was going with that. Yep.
There's a lot of people trying to get in early on the VR MMO scene. Like I think Rec Room is kind of going for that a little bit, and they're not really like it's small and it's instanced, but there's definitely a sense of community there.
Right. But I was just going to say, I think the first people to do it right and to do it well will be like the new, pretty much kings of the gaming industry in terms of money. Like they will make more money than anyone else.
It's hard though because you can't do the traditional like fairly simple RPG combat. I mean, yeah, the numbers aren't simple and like, but the actual gameplay was fairly simple.
Right. Like
and you can't really pull that off in VR because VR is so tactile.
It's certainly a challenge. And I think for it to be done right, we don't have the technology yet. I mean, for it to be a truly immersive MMO in VR, I still say at least a decade plus out before we can even start thinking about that sort of thing. But I think it could happen.
I'm gonna do a short aside into what the next generation of VR is gonna look like here for a second.
Sure.
Because I was reading about it. Google has technology right now for higher resolution VR and higher field of view that can run on the same hardware that the current gen of VR runs on, like the same graphics cards and stuff, using a technology called eye tracking, where it's only high resolution where you're looking. Your peripheral vision is kind of lower resolution. If that makes sense.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And so that divides the number of pixels that have to render by a ton. It also has hand tracking without gloves, incredibly accurate. Obviously, you can't feel anything you're picking up, but they can track individual fingers and everything very accurately.
That's so exciting. Like that's
like 2020.
Yeah, like
is when they think that sort of thing is going to be around for consumers.
Like this tech is advancing so fast. Like we'll be there before we know it. And the end game sort of dream MMO I was envisioning, it's kind of something like Ready Player One. If you guys have seen that,
I have.
I have not.
Where you have a VR set on, you have a touch suit on, and you also are on like a multi-directional treadmill. So you're essentially
you're there.
In every sense, you're there, except for like physically. Like you're moving, you're feeling, you're seeing everything in the VR world.
Right, and I think that there's just an infinite amount of potential there.
Absolutely, yeah. And couple that with, say World of Warcraft. What if World of Warcraft's the first to do it? Like, that would really...
There's just so much design you have to rethink, though, because MMOs... every MMO I've ever played, it's just full of menus, like littered with menus.
Right, yeah.
And menus just don't work in VR very well.
Right.
They have to be very limited.
Yeah, I mean, but I do think there's a solution out there. It just needs to be thought of.
I think there are a lot of little indie games right now kind of solving the individual problems with menus and stuff. Like, there's a VR blacksmithing game that kind of, has a solution to that. It makes everything in a blacksmith forge very tactile, and like most MMOs have crafting systems, so crafting needs to be solved. Combat is obviously being addressed by a million different people trying to figure out how to make VR combat fun.
Honestly, combat will probably be the first thing to get fixed, quote unquote, because 99% of games have combat.
Yeah.
Yeah, VR combat will get fixed very soon.
I mean, VR shooting is fun, so if it's a VR, if it's a shooter MMO, you're fine.
Right. My mind goes to like you're playing,
Fantasy.
fantasy. You have like 20 different spells with like different
Shooting a bow and
buffs.
arrow in VR is incredibly immersive.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And like spells, I think are an easy solution. You can just draw with a wand in the air. I think the hard part is sword combat, getting that to feel good. And you have a
Right.
couple of games that have kind of solved that problem already, like Gorn. I don't know if a VR MMO released and was good right now. I would, as someone who's never paid a subscription service for a video game at all, I would probably subscribe
I would at the very
because
least be keeping my eye on it.
I miss being absorbed into an MMO. I kind of miss
See,
like
that's the thing. Part of me misses it, but I think a bigger part of me doesn't because I definitely have like an addictive personality. So when I was
yeah.
really into MapleStory, like it was gross, honestly, like how into it I was.
Oh, it's absolutely. I'm sitting here, as like the person who 30 years later is still craving a cigarette,
Yeah, it's essentially like MMOs are
It's
drugs, like full on, like
yeah.
they really are. They activate like your reward sensor in your brain, like it's the same like mechanism.
Oh yeah, the
Dopamine,
endorphins that an MMO releases in your mind it's insane. It's not
right?
good for you.
And yeah, like even to this day, like once or twice, like maybe even 3 times a year, I will get back on MapleStory for like several days, just get it out of my system, and then forget about it for another several months.
Yeah. You have to.
I guess you have to since you indulged in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although something like WoW's I think on its way out. It's run its course.
Yeah, I mean WoW's still at the top though, which is just crazy. It's Blizzard. Blizzard seemingly can do no wrong.
It's
Yeah, I mean,
it's also a combination that all the competitors that like people have said of WoW killers, they've either fizzled out or been improperly supported.
right. And I mean, none of them ever got the boom that they expected in the first place as a WoW killer. They never had the starting numbers that they really wanted.
Stuff like WildStar. WildStar was legitimately fun, but it kind of suffered from lack of support and the fact that, the rest of the combat was fun, but everything else wasn't.
Yeah, I think you have to have a lot more than good combat to make an MMO. You have to have good crafting systems because crafting and selling what you craft is huge in a community economy.
Even WildStar's crafting system was good. I think it's also the lack of an endgame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's probably enough MMO talk.
Well, actually, I just wanted to end this talk by like going back to our first MMO memories.
Yeah. Okay.
My first MMO was RuneScape, that I think started in 5th or 6th grade. I never remember. Yeah, I remember being so incredibly enthralled by that world, and just I had never played. I think I had never even played like an online multiplayer game before that point. So like it just completely blew my mind. Like all these other people running around were real, and like you could trade with them, you could fight them in the wilderness, and you could do all these sorts of things. And I had all sorts of friends that I gone out and played with, and even and like you said, not just the combat, but just like every single facet, leveling up my wood cutting, fire making, simple things like that. It was so addicting. Like I remember one time, like I was in 5th grade or whatever, I was just like mining and like smelting ore, and I did that all day, and I thought it was so much fun. And like when you break it down now, it's just like that sounds like the most boring thing. Like you were literally just doing work in a video game, but it leveled me up and it made me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my first memory.
I think my first MMO it was either MapleStory, which I've already talked about a bunch, so I'll talk about the other one. It was a game called Flife, which was short for Fly for Fun. It was this game where they hook you early with like the promise of this like really cool flight system where you could get like a hoverboard or like a magic broom or something and you can fly, but you can't do that till you hit level 20. So
how long does it take to hit level 20?
It took me less than a week, I think. And I was a kid, so I could probably do it in like an hour or two now. But I don't know. It was interesting. The world's huge. The soundtrack was really cool, and it was like you said, it was my first time playing a game where all these other people were real. And like they kind of, and I can see, you can see these other players zooming around in the sky, which to a kid is like, God, that's crazy that they can do that. And you have this massive world map that they let you see from the very beginning, but you can't get to very much of it because you can't get off the ground, so you can't go anywhere.
Yeah, I imagine as a kid seeing that for the first time, like must have been like a kid in a candy shop, like you're just odd.
It was ridiculous,
Yeah.
and like you actually have to like take really slow transportation around to a couple of the different islands because like you get your first job at level 15, not level 20. So I had to go handle that without the ability to fly, which was very annoying and stuff. But like that was just another thing to make you want it more.
Yeah.
And it had some cool systems like if you got caught doing PvP, like it had like a karma system. You could kill other players on certain servers if you wanted to. But if you got the next time you died after that, you would wake up in a prison and you'd have to like grind a certain amount to get out of prison. It was really weird. And I remember getting stuck there.
Because you killed other people?
And yeah, I killed other people just like to see what the deal was. Like, I don't know. I didn't really understand what I was doing it that much because I was a kid. But yeah, I ended up quitting because I got stuck in the prison and couldn't grind my way
So you never
out.
got your flight?
I did get my flight. This was after that.
Good.
No, the flight was actually incredibly disappointing. The mechanics weren't that fun, and it was just kind of it was just a fast way of getting around.
That's not surprising at all.
Yeah.
What about you, Mike?
I am trying to think. I think my first one was actually Toontown Online.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I played that at some point, too. That game's iconic.
It's very iconic.
Thank you, Jesse Shell.
Did he
Side
make that?
note, yes.
Yeah, Jesse Shell
We have
made
spoken to the creator of Toontown. All three of us. We've met him.
We've got our picture with him.
Have we? I don't think I have my picture with him.
Yeah, we were holding those Dr. Pepper cans.
Oh, yeah! It was great. But that game, I remember it very fondly because it was one of the first MMOs I played, and one of the only ones I really put a lot of time in and broke many keyboards over, I think.
See, I don't think I got the same wanderlust out of Toontown because, like, you couldn't really talk to people. They had all those restrictions on the chat and stuff.
I don't know how I got into it that deep. I think Toontown I got into a little less deep than I got into Pirates of the Caribbean Online.
I remember that one.
Ooh, that one sucked. Like, the free model for that one sucked.
Yeah, it was...
Like, oh, here, have a pistol. Now you can't access it. Have fun.
Yeah, I mean, that game was kind of like... Sea of Thieves before Sea of Thieves, huh?
But the one I really got wanderlust out of, and I'm going to get a lot of hate, was Roblox.
I did too. I played a lot of Roblox.
I still to this day go back and look at like what cool people do.
Yeah,
cool
that game was crazy because it like had an almost Unity level editor.
Yeah, and it still does. People do some crazy stuff with it.
Oh yeah, I actually looked at the Roblox editor here recently because I saw that somebody was like teaching game development using Roblox, and I was like, well, is the editor really that powerful? And it is.
Yeah,
it's as
crazy.
powerful as Unity. Probably. It's insane. You just can only do Legos.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen people who've made Pokemon games in Roblox.
Like, it's kooky how much of an engine that game has created.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of good times. And Roblox is neat because it doesn't have, like, a ton of MMO kind of mechanics.
Yeah.
It's almost more like Little Big Planet.
Introduce the MMO mechanics.
Yeah. Roblox, that takes me back. That was my first shooter.
See,
I think it was my first a lot of things.
Even just talking about MMOs makes me want to get back on like MapleStory or something.
Yeah, I'm like scratching
which is
my
just
arms
like
right now,
very strange because I objectively recognize how terrible of a game that is. Like, it's pure trash, unadulterated trash.
No, it always. So I always hop on these games, and I think you and I like them for different reasons. Like, I like the community side a lot more than you, I would say.
Probably.
So I'll hop on Mabinogi, see that I have a friends list of 200 people, and none of them are online, and I'll like walk around for 10 or 20 minutes, realize I don't want to like try to rebuild, I don't want to take any of those people off my friends list. I don't want to add any to it because it's already 200 people, and then I'll just sign off because like the damage is done.
Right.
The game's over.
That's the dream.
The glory days are gone.
Like, whenever you get on an MMO they haven't played in a while, and you see your friends list just empty, or
It's
everyone
kind of sad.
offline.
Yeah, it hurt. It stings.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Personally, for me at least, I feel like it's for the best to not play an MMO. For me, just because I know how I can get,
I have that problem.
and I'm perfectly happy with all the other types of games I play. So
I have the empty friends list issue on Minecraft as well because I played on a Minecraft server that was fairly. It was only like 20 or 30 people at its largest, but now it's I haven't seen another person online in months. I check in on it maybe once a month because like I almost grew up with those people. Like I started playing Minecraft in middle school, and now I'm about to graduate college, and I still check in on the server. So like that's a substantial
yeah,
part of my life. I've been hanging out with those guys, and only like 2 or 3 of them are still around at all. It's kind of sad. And it's literally like 0 people online on the server. I'm surprised it's even still up.
Because at this point, it's cheaper to keep the server up than not.
just gonna say all good things come to an end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that was a really good talk. We can move on to our final pre E3 hype, whatever you want to call it, segment. Actually, not too much, I think, to talk about this week.
I want to get the Sonic the Hedgehog.
Most of the
walk-
leaks
or,
already
walk
happened,
away.
but we have already talked about. So, what about Sonic, Connor?
So, Sonic the Hedgehog, I'm sure we all remember in Sonic Adventure 2 the iconic rocket launch scene
Sure.
in Metal Harbor. And Sonic the Hedgehog tweeted "Good morning" at Elon Musk on June 4th, 2018. Further evidence.
I don't think that's evidence.
I got a
I
big
think
one.
that's the Sonic Twitter being cute.
I got a big one.
Yeah, no, that's super nothing.
So today on PlayStationLifestyle.net, there was a report that's posted that says Death Stranding gameplay detailed ahead of E3. I don't believe it at
that.
all, but
We will see Death Stranding at E3. At the very least, we'll get another trailer. Hopefully, we'll get gameplay. Hopefully, ideal scenario, Hideo Kojima will be on that stage with a controller in his hand playing that game.
yeah, this is a leak from 4chan, so it's probably not true.
Right. In terms of actual news, something came out today that a lot of people are really hyped over, but I have no connection to. Apparently, they're doing a Tales of Vesperia remaster. Do any of you play the Tales games? No?
I've played Tales of Symphonia a little, back when it was on GameCube, and I just didn't really. I never finished it. I don't really care.
There's like a lot of
But I have
buzz about this. But I think the biggest thing for me was Bungie. This isn't a leak, but Bungie did their year 2 Destiny 2 reveal content thing, and they kind of knocked it out of the park. Like the direction they're taking Destiny 2 in is very interesting.
So, Killer Queen, which we talked about a couple days ago, there was a 4chan leak that says it might get revealed on the Switch. Killer Queen Black. Did we?
I think I mentioned that last week. But I believe I did, but it's worth saying again. Killer Queen on Switch is a perfect match. Like,
What is Killer Queen?
it's that arcade game that.
That would be unreal if that was on
Splinter Cell.
Switch. Oh my god.
Yeah, like how much fun would that be? Like just a crap. Everyone has a Joy-Con. Like you can all play on one screen. It would be great.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey was confirmed.
that
So
would be unreal.
Again, we
Yeah.
talked about Assassin's Creed earlier. The Destiny 2 thing, I think, is very like I you guys are probably rolling your eyes, but like
I mean, that game's dead, right? It doesn't.
I don't think it is, especially after this stream. Like everyone watching it was saying that they're totally in for this expansion.
I mean, the game was $12. Like that's a dead
But
game.
you're missing the point. Destiny 2, like it's not going to make its revenue by selling more copies of Destiny 2. It's going to make its revenue by,
Getting more people in the
microtransactions, expansions, etc.,
I guess. I just don't.
So like they announced a new game mode, which is like PvPvE. They're calling it Gambit. I don't know the details, but like a lot of people were hyped over it. They're reworking like the gunplay again, so it could be like Destiny 1, or you could make it like Destiny 2. It's basically completely customizable now, which is what players have been wanting.
How is that like balanced?
I don't know. They're tweaking a lot of things, and they're also reintroducing random weapon rolls again, which players also
Uh-oh.
wanted. So
This is
What's
a
wrong?
aside. Steam posted on their blog, on the Steam blog, that their stance on things getting to the Steam store is non-action. Everything gets on as long as it's not illegal.
I mean, that's kind of already been like,
I don't like this.
it's evident that that's their policy.
Yeah, but now it's straight up confirmed, and I don't like this. I used to browse new releases for fun-looking games, and now I browse new releases to get a good laugh.
Well, I guess Steam's moderation or lack thereof could be another topic, but yeah, it's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just finishing up, I'm pretty hyped for this Destiny 2 stuff. Like, and that's saying something because I have not touched Destiny 2 in months. But it definitely looked like they were recapturing that old like Destiny feel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't know. I don't have any faith in Bungie these days.
And
Yeah, I
I
lost
don't
it.
blame you. That's perfectly reasonable. But I don't know. We'll see when it comes out. But at this point, I'm more than likely going to get it and play it. In terms of other E3 leaks / news, I don't think there's. One other thing. Hitman 2 was sort of leaked / teased, which is a pretty big deal. The first game was like divided up into like episodic, or it was divided into episodes, and apparently it didn't sell all that well. But like the gameplay and the gunplay and the stealth in those games was superb. So I'm very glad
The
that
people that liked it a lot.
I'm glad that it's getting a sequel.
Me too.
Yeah.
One other thing that wasn't really a thing when we did our predictions episode, Square Enix is having an E3 showing, a conference actually, and which is kind of a rare thing for Square. They don't really do that anymore. But I know, like, Connor, you're a big Square fan. Is there anything you're looking forward to in particular, or hyped over?
I don't know. They'll probably. I don't really know. I'm thinking of all the Square Enix games I play right now, and I think they do Just Cause, don't they?
Who?
Square Enix.
Square Enix does, but Avalanche Studios is doing that. But they're helping out Bethesda and id with Rage 2.
Yeah, I really don't know what from Square Enix I'm particularly excited for. Did they do Nier Automata?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. If there's anything,
No. That was Platinum, wasn't it?
Platinum Games did the combat, but they worked in partnership with Square Enix.
I'm checking real quick.
Anything Nier related, anything Yoko Taro has his hands in from now on, I'll be buying probably after how much I loved Nier Automata.
It was published by Square, yeah. Square Enix
I
did
just
publish
don't. I don't know what. They'll probably talk about. God, I can't remember the name. It had a prequel this year, Before the Storm.
Oh, Life is Strange. Yes,
They'll probably talk about Life is Strange
about Life is
too,
Strange
and I'll be
too.
interested in
Yeah,
that.
that'll be good. They'll probably also talk about more Final Fantasy 15 stuff, which is just to me. But
Final Fantasy 14 is another MMO.
and apparently it's a
still
really
alive.
good MMO.
Yeah,
like that's what I've heard.
Nothing
Yeah.
but good things about it.
I've never played it really. I might have to check it out sometime once I'm done developing games for a while. I think getting addicted to an MMO right now would be catastrophic to my workflow.
I just think I don't know. I think if you're over the age of like 20, getting addicted to an MMO would just be catastrophic for your life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't really think of anything else E3 wise we should talk about. Obviously, E3 is happening, in less than a week. So the next episode we record is going to be our analysis / breakdown episode.
Our hype
Yep.
episode, you mean?
Recap, whatever.
Our hype for Banjo-Kazooie, the new one, and the
Oh.
new Sonic Adventure game. And
You mean you're hyped for the new Sonic Adventure game?
If there truly is a new Sonic Adventure game, I will be hyped too. But I don't think it exists.
would you say eat your hat if there's a new Sonic Adventure game announced?
Why would I do something like that?
I don't
He's
know.
getting defensive. He knows. He's an insider.
Well, anyway, all right. Let's round off the show and talk about what we've been playing. Who wants to go first?
I want to go first, I think. Played is a strong word, probably. I just want to talk about Totally Accurate Battlegrounds for a
Sure.
second. I booted it up. I'm very interested in it. It's free to play for the next 4 days, or like if you download it, you get to keep it forever. It's just free for 4 days, and then it's going to cost
$5.
$5. So they're kind of trying to get that initial player base up. I wasn't able to get into a game. I wanted to play it briefly before this, but they have like a shooting range you can play in, and already I can tell you that the gunplay feels way better than PUBG.
That's kind of funny.
I can tell you that. Basically, what they're trying to do is PUBG, but better.
So this is a PUBG parody game, right?
They're calling it a parody game, I think, trying not to get sued. But it's in the trailer you see guys running around with pans in their hands. Like it definitely wears its humor on its sleeve. And all the costumes you can wear like very silly and stuff. But it just seems like a PUBG that isn't horribly unoptimized, and like it was running much better than PUBG ever did on my PC. The graphics aren't as good. It's a little low poly, but it has a style, which is something I feel like PUBG is missing. So I think it's kind of like you have the people who like a more serious tone, kinda flocking to PUBG, and like they want to play first person mode. They want to like actually like worry about gunplay and skill and stuff, whereas you have people who want to like worry about building and like just kind of maybe just having fun for a match, go to Fortnite. And I think Totally Accurate Battlegrounds wants to steal the more serious gunplay crowd from PUBG. So I think overall it has potential to be my favorite battle royale so far, but I have not played it a ton. I just think it's hilarious that it exists.
Apparently, watching a stream of it right now, you can equip a shield. Yeah, you can equip a sword and shield.
Really?
Pan.
So yeah, I'm excited to give it a shot. I just wanted to plug it here because, I don't know, every time I see something in the Battle Royale genre that looks genuine and like it might actually like do something to build on it instead of just cashing in on it, I'm interested.
Right on. Well, I guess this is worth keeping an eye on then. I can go next, I guess. I have been playing Assassin's Creed Origins. So I got this game like around when it came out, and then played it for like 20 minutes, then put it down just because I was distracted with other stuff. But this past weekend, I really earnestly got into it, put several hours into it, and it is a fantastic Assassin's Creed game. Definitely, I would say top 3 already. It's just so much fun to play. It was made by the same team who did Black Flag, and Black Flag was my favorite Assassin's Creed game. So Origins takes place in Egypt. It's basically a revenge story. The assassin's name is Bayek, and he's basically getting vengeance for his murdered son. The main differentiator for this game, though, is that it has way more intensive RPG elements than any Assassin's Creed before it. It almost feels kind of like The Witcher 3 when you play it. Like, there's like different weapon types, like dual swords, axes, heavy axes, etc. And like these weapon types can have different levels and all this sort of thing. Like there's different types of bows, like combat bows, hunting bows, sniper bows, and the same applies.
Sniper bows.
Yeah, it's silly. There's like a shotgun bow too, where you can where you literally arm 5 arrows at once and shoot.
I've seen someone do that.
Yeah. So like it's a little silly, but they had to get a little creative with the weaponry to have like that good old RPG diversity there. But the game is beautiful. It's just like the architecture and like the geography is so stunning, like as it always is with Assassin's Creed games. The reason I love those games is because they really transport you to that place and in that time more so than a lot of other games, I think. And that's what they're most effective at. And this one's no different. The map is enormous, and I've yet to explore even half of it.
I've heard it's incredibly immersive. Like, they're saying it has educational value.
Yeah, they even added a discovery tour mode to the game where it literally just takes you to historical sites and happenings in ancient Egypt. There's no like combat involved. It's literally just a tour mode for educational purposes, which is something really cool and unique to video games. Yeah, I've been having a blast playing it so far, and I can't wait to get back to it. What about you,
All
Mike?
right, Mike?
I really haven't played anything. I can't talk about Warframe because, arbitrary rules. Although Warframe is getting a major content update very soon. So, but
Anything else?
yes, I tried playing Mass Effect Andromeda and then immediately quit when I was disappointed.
You should talk about it.
Ooh boy! So I launched Mass Effect Andromeda. It's like it can't be that bad. I'm like in denial. I want to play another Mass Effect game. So I'm like, what could go wrong? The game's still bad. Like it might be marginally better. The animations might be marginally better, but it's still bad. The combat's good. The game runs decently, I guess. But everything else about the game just sucks.
So, like, there were all these stories about like the janky animation stuff. Have they patched that at least?
Oh, they're still there. They're just slightly less jank.
But like, you're saying that the gameplay loop isn't fun, and like,
The gameplay loop is in front. I haven't even made it to the main part of the game, and I already don't like it.
So it has no hook, really, at the beginning, even.
It really hasn't hooked me. Like, your dad dies. That's the hook.
Spoilers.
Spoiler for a game that no one's ever going to play.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
so do you anticipate, like, are you gonna keep playing it,
Probably
or are you done
Done.
already? Yeah.
Like, I kind of have no interest in going back to it and actually progressing past the prologue.
What a shame. Like Mass Effect 1 through 3 are some of my favorite games of all time. But yeah, I can't be bothered with Mass Effect Andromeda.
That and the fact that they completely abandoned the story means even if I do get attached, it's going to end on a cliffhanger, and I'm just going to be very disappointed.
I was just gonna say, if that's all you have to say about Mass Effect, we can round off the show. All right, so this was our last pre-E3 episode. E3 is going to happen between this show and the next. I'm very excited. Obviously, all three of us are going to watch it, and we'll come back with our reactions and who won, what bets, and all that good stuff. And I don't know. I'm just really hyped. I can't wait to see what's shown. I hope there's still some surprises with how leaky it's been.
Yeah, me too. I'm a little worried about that.
But yeah, we'll see you next week. See ya.